I might
No
do a
worries, man.
clap or a thumbs up. The two reactions were allowed in all global Zoom. 300
Yeah.
million meetings a day, but there are two yellow reactions when there are 3,000 emojis in Unicode with skin tone. Hit the API, my friends.
Wow. No, I did not know that.
Puts it all in perspective.
Definitely didn't
The
know
world
that.
wasn't ready for conferencing. The conferencing is 1.0. It's going to be so crazy. Check out this thing called It's the CEO of Evernote, and it allowed me to take my head, shrink it to the corner, play like YouTube videos here, show you my smartphone screen. It's totally cool.
Wow.
Zoom, and then they're going to run um, natural language processing. So like while we're talking, a computer's crunching and then bringing in your notes from the CRM and giving you cues on people's LinkedIn. And it's going to be awesome what's coming.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's amazing. There's a lot of really cool stuff going. So, I mean, as you guys can see, Justin's at the forefront of a lot of this. We've been following him for a long time. If he's someone that you're not following now, you should definitely follow him. He is the regional VP of sales at YouAppi. And as you guys know, we've been doing these sessions over the past couple of months with candidates that are looking for roles in sales or marketing. And we invite leaders like Justin to jump in, and we're kind of doing something unique where we take best practices that work in sales or marketing and we apply them to your job search. Justin and I kind of chatted about that a little bit, treating yourself like a premium product. What are different ways that you can stand out? I actually wanted to start with Clinton and kind of go in like a specific order. Usually we go ladies first, but I thought it would be interesting to start with Clinton, and then Brad, and then Macarena. And I'll explain a little bit, but we do watch the videos that you guys submit, by the way. So that didn't go into like some sphere somewhere. One of the things that Clinton mentioned, which I think a lot of people are facing, is that he hasn't been on the job market for a really long time. And, he was in a senior leadership position right before this, and then kind of got thrust into it. I think you said since 2007, which is like ages in terms of just the technology and how everything has been evolving, which Justin alluded to a little bit. And then I'll kind of intro Brad and I'll intro Macarena. But Justin, I'll let you lead the show in terms of what you want to dive into. We usually try and give everyone up to 20 minutes of like one-on-one-ish attention, and then kind of get as tactical as we can.
Yeah, so this background looks pretty real, I'm told. It actually, it is real. Yeah, I keep thinking of the Macarena and my dance moves, which lead a lot to be desired. The only kind of dance I couldn't master was salsa. I just can't get the step. I have good rhythm too. I'm a big jazz fan, so I will crack it. It's on my bucket list to become like adept at salsa before I die. So there's a little time, depending on how long I stay in SDR world, right? The hairs go gray. Look, like during a job search, you are the product. And as cliche as it may sound, 50 hours a week, come to work every day and promote yourself, build your bench, right? It's pretty crazy because I don't have a college degree. So usually when I apply to a job, I get rejected within 10 seconds from an algorithm in a machine that goes, no degree, and spits it out. So I've obviously interviewed at many places, but I somehow have been able to work for LinkedIn and Salesforce and work for Sean Parker. So, you know, I could say I have imposter syndrome, but I actually just had enough grit that I refused to let that stop me from working for awesome tech companies. My rule is I wanted to believe in the product. I wanted to use the product myself. And typically I used very disruptive products and disruptive tactics. One of the biggest ways I got into big companies was knowing someone there. They really like warm referrals. Our second degree networks, like first degree of Kevin Bacon, are really strong. It's pretty crazy. I mean, we were just talking, Clinton and I, about Salt Lake City. Well, I was just there at the Zant 2020 conference. So I probably know 5 people that know Clinton right now. He's in sales in Salt Lake City, whether they're at Workfront or Zant or Lucid, right? So I have a company footprint in Salt Lake right now, in first and second degree, that I'm just accessing through the 30,000 connections. So our networks are net worth. So we want to really network very widely, humble ourselves to ask everyone we've ever known who they know who's hiring. And that's okay. If you ask 100 people a day who they know who's hiring, it's okay. It's quantity and quality. I have applied to thousands of jobs, not hundreds, thousands. And I think the big reason is during the times that I was working in SaaS the last 20 years, the algorithm, which was primitive, just spit me out. A lot of times, like the algorithm would spit me out, and then I would contact the hiring manager. So I'm running triples on these hiring managers, right? I'll call the VP of sales, I'll call the recruiters that they point me at, I'll make lists and I'll leave them messages and I'll get on their calendar, and I'm just relentless until they turn me off. Like they need to say, you don't get the job, I'm not going to talk to you, go away, talk to someone else, right? Hire someone to deal with my call volume. I'm being comedic here, but I think the point is that you are the product, the solution, the SaaS, the service is yourself, and just approach it with the same fire and tenacity you do in your first 90 days. It's hard because you're in this jet wash of like, I need to make income and I need to get a sales job. And so it feels like it's a different thing. But if you just keep building your bench, then it'll get to, well, traditionally on-site interviews, and then you get down to your final, offer stage for offer letters. But for now, I think you can like make that process accelerate fully remotely. So you're trying to get a certain amount of meetings every week, which is very similar to just calling a list of prospects and having a certain amount of like meetings every week that convert to opportunities. I can drone on. I wrote a 70,000 page book on SDR tactics, so I don't want to
Yeah,
bore
I'm
you
sure we
all
can
to
get
death.
into it.
Like, if you want a calm recording before bed to help cure insomnia, I'm available.
No, I mean, I think it would be helpful, Clinton. Like, you're obviously doing some of these things already. You mentioned treating it somewhat that way. And I think a lot of us will kind of do it naturally in a way, at least in sales. So what have been like your biggest setbacks, or where are you now in terms of like what you're trying to get to?
Yeah. The two questions I have for Justin, anyone else on the call as well. One is, I had this steady growth in my career. Started as an account development manager at Omniture in 2007. 2-3 years in each role, got tapped on the shoulder to move up to a mid-market AE, to an enterprise AE at Adobe, and then Observe Point, and then got tapped on the shoulder to be the EVP of revenue, really, for that company. I got about just over 2 years into that, and the COVID hit, and 50% of our company was let go, including me. So my challenge has been the algorithm, right, that you talk about. Is I have 2.5 years maybe of the experience for the jobs I want to go get, and I'm being disqualified, I think, pretty quickly in that process, either from the algorithm or the hiring HR department in most cases. The second part of that is I wonder how much, and if there's a change in the approach at all in the past, Justin, to because of the high amount of people on the job market right now, the high amount of competition for these jobs. Is there, other than volume, quality and quantity, and being able to touch all of the hiring managers, is there something else? Is there some other secret sauce that folks can use right now to get through the noise?
Yeah, so totally been where you are, right? I backfilled like a co-founder in a company a few companies ago. It was like building technology, meeting with VCs and angels, and it was just like, a made man consigliere. It's like, here I am, I'm doing the startup thing, spending a week in San Francisco, I'm meeting all these amazing people. It was hard work. It was like 100-hour-a-week type work, like every waking hour type startup entrepreneurship work. It was hard in a different way. Mm-hmm. And then there's like being an IC or being a player coach or being a manager. And then like, that's hard in a different way, because now you're the manager and your whole life is meetings. Just like the higher up you go, then it's like, I mean, right now I'm on 15 Zoom calls a day. It's nuts. I get like on Zoom at 6 a.m, and then, I have a Zoom after this in Tel Aviv. It's kind of exciting. For me, I humbled myself greatly after that, because like you can draw a pretty cool salary and equity doing some of these really high level roles. But then again, at the end of the day, I'm a rep. So this is like a huge equalizer. If you're willing to get on the phone and hunt, and you're willing to generate business, I would let the titles right now float and be amorphous. There may be some IC roles right now that no one's willing to do, that no one has the acumen. I don't know if you know Chris Harrington of Omniture fame. He has a Twitter profile dedicated to his hair. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, we're actually pretty close.
He's a lovely person. I would write to him, like even a handwritten note, and even say, Chris, like, let me down, tell me I can't work for you, but who do you know in Salt Lake? Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know your exact situations. I have to always be careful when I'm advising. But me personally, sure, right now, I love Scott Leese. He says, I'll bag groceries at Trader Joe's. And this is Scott Leese. This is a top consultant, commercially and otherwise, who's had many successful VP sales roles. When he said that, it blew my mind, because at the end of the day, my favorite GMs and managers, like I had a GM at 3 companies, and he'd walk in at lunch and everyone was quiet. He'd pick up the phone and was like, what's going on with the Spotify account? Yeah, they're not interested. No one's there. Well, let me see. Go in the CRM and just start calling phone numbers. And he's the GM of the whole organization. He lands a meeting and people are like mystified. So that willingness to sort of like lead by example, to take a role that might be lower in title, but as long as the fundamentals are there, like if you can hit your comp target on the pay plan, it might seem like a lateral move or a step backwards, or you're crossing your arms. So I'm reading you. I feel like I'm giving you bad advice now.
No, not at all. This is more comfortable for how I'm sitting. It's interesting that you're saying this, Justin, because that's kind of how it was when I first, like, I was going to go apply for everything and try, if I had to be an IC or whatever else.
Yeah.
I started talking to more recruiters and like, oh no, you got to be focused in what you want to do. So like, okay, let me figure out exactly what I want to do, and I'm going to go after that. And I honestly feel like I've been limiting myself because of it.
So I think to turn this thing around, recruiters, it's a lot like an oasis in the desert. I love them. I have 1,000 that I'm connected to. And I have reached a level in mobile marketing where I have been able to work through recruiters because I have such a specialized SME content as you would have through Omniture and some of the knowledge bases you have to be able to go so deeply into marketing analytics and know all the APIs and integrations, the whole ecosystem of thousands of vendors of tech in the Lumascape. Like, I get it. I live there. But at the end of the day, right now, I have a contrarian argument is that the most flexible, this is like guerrilla warfare, right? We always reference sort of like, Napoleonic strategy. It's like the military strategy that works the best is the one that is the most flexible during the battle. The best example is the redcoats. They're like showing up in their press suits, kneeling, packing their guns, and then like the other force just overwhelms them out of the trees as they're trying to like get their gun going. So right now I'd say you don't want to spray and pray, but whatever your strongest skill set is on the team, think of it like soccer or football. Like you can just run the ball. You're fast and you run it to the right field, or you're a defender. If you have the ability to generate, are you a hunter or are you strategic accounts? What do you normally do before you were in an executive in management?
I've done them all. I've kind of grown from hunt. I would say I'm more hunter than anything else, but I was working for strategic accounts the last 5 years.
Yeah, I went backwards. I started Salesforce with like a $5 million book of business and had to figure out like QBRs and getting on site and like whiteboards. And I had to be like the impresario. It was a lot. It helped to have that PMP view going into new business development. But I would say whatever your gift is, because some people they're beautiful farmers. They do the farming thing, the relationship build, that they love the Gantt charts and doing the renewals and that stuff. That's really valuable. But if you have that hunting ability and you're willing to just look at what the actual role is to go hunt new business, you're extremely valuable right now. Willingness to get on the phone, if you can train people how to get on the phone. So I would go direct to the companies you want to work for in Salt Lake City and around North America, because a lot of people have eased up on the remote restrictions. And just start promoting what it is you do. Like you drive revenue into SaaS companies, you understand this marketing stack, and you can teach others how to do it and manage others how to do it. What do you have? And like, well, we need this role. Are you willing to do this? And if you've played every position on the team, it's a piece of it. You might have to grow again and go in as a beachhead in this role. I can't tell you how many times I've come in as I came in as a senior enterprise rep at Tune.com, and they promoted me to running worldwide sales development for one of their divisions. I generated the most opportunities in the company. I had the strongest pipeline in the history of the company in that division. So I earned it. So it's a willingness to just be scrappy and nimble. It sucks to reprove yourself over and over, but this is a pandemic reality where some of us have to just reprove. So maybe relax a little bit on the base and look more at the comp and back channel to the reps that are there. And are they successful? And is there a path forward of advancement here? And make sure you set expectations with that employer that you're doing this for a certain amount of time on certain milestones. You want to get back into that EVP track. As a proven manager, like this is a lateral move. However, I'm helping you in a crisis. You're helping me, and this is where I want this to go. So I think there's a lot of insights to unpack there. Do you agree with that? Is that
no? That's really insightful. I like that, and it's. I guess my question is, if I'm going after that role that I want, and it's an IC role, is it appropriate, or is it going to be a turnoff to the hiring team if I'm saying, hey, I'm going to come do this, I'm going to help you win business for X amount of time, but my goal is to get here? Are they going to say, oh, we're not hiring for that, we're hiring for this, and move on?
I think recruiters want something in a pretty bow because they've got a certain requisition and they have to fill it. They're like, we're looking for a 1968 Porsche, Speedster. And they're like, if it's not that, but the hiring manager internally to companies where I've had way more success, it just over time I got hunted because I had a very unique profile. But in this economy, it's less about title. It's more about ability and skill set. If you can hunt and train others to hunt, and you understand a certain vertical and you work within marketing SaaS or analytics, I know you would do well. So I think it's setting expectation with that hiring manager and willingness to be flexible and willingness to get to your comp in different ways. Maybe there's a different portion of the equity, a different structure of compensation, a different upside. I'm on both sides. I'm just saying, don't miss the opportunity to get on a rocket ship right now that is growing and is anti-fragile. It's going the other way just because they see you as too senior. Oh, I see the EVP. When you say, yeah, I'm an EVP, but I'm hands-on, I'm a doer, get things done. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves right now and bail the boat. However, the best way I can get back to EVP is to do this here and move up within. I'm not, You can talk to 100 candidates who have to be an EVP or nothing. I'll show humility. Like, you wouldn't want me to work here and not want to get back into the EVP role. I'm just a realist about where the world is, right? These are the kind of talk tracks that have allowed companies to create roles for me. I'm going to be pretty malleable. And then you'll shine. Your natural skill sets and mindsets and abilities will come out. And then if it's a good company, they'll position you on an advancement track and you'll be back to where you want to be in no time, versus waiting for that EVP or waiting for the recruiters to come through. The recruitment path is traditionally slow, even in the Q1 boom prior to the crisis.
Well, that's really good insight. I appreciate that.
I wanted to just jump in with something, because what Justin is saying obviously is right on, and some of the stuff that you said, Clinton, is kind of begging the question for me too. Like, you mentioned having this conversation and getting a lot of these things across. Some of that might happen in the interview process, et cetera, but kind of the elephant in the room is LinkedIn, right? So what can Clinton do on LinkedIn to preempt some of these things? And some of the words that you've been saying this whole time, I actually like, boom, that's his headline. Boom, that's his about, right? And it's like, we're not getting a lot of this right now. So Justin, I mean, you're very good at LinkedIn. What's kind of your approach?
It's really interesting because I never really go on the market necessarily. I really, though, admire someone like Coca Sexton, who has his own hashtag of like hire Coca, and now there's like open to work hashtag. There's a lot of this. There's a case to be made now in the crisis to always be, allowing yourself to have a plan B and C and D. It's not disloyalty. It's just being smart. There's a huge risk just being remote. Like, I had actually a disadvantage being in Santa Barbara versus Salt Lake City because I'm not in a major central city hub or an airport. Like, a lot of companies, like, it's not a bias, but a lot of the big companies want you to be located in region, right? In a population saturation. Like, if you're deep in LA, you're going to get tech jobs because there's such a huge market to serve there. And that's kind of buoyed. Even in a suppressed economy or a crisis, there's tons of locals. So the minute that the vaccine's out, you can visit, you're strategic where you're located. However, I've been doing a lot of like 6 and 7 figure deals all over the world, as far as like Belarus and like, in Asia Pac and Singapore, just, sitting here in my yard. When I hire people personally, I look for proactive people who get it done wherever they are, and I don't micromanage them. People have the track record to succeed and perform. So as far as like your LinkedIn profile, it needs to be written from a position of strength to really signal to recruiters and hiring managers what you did concretely at the companies. I know Amy Volas talks about this a lot. It's like the baseball card, right? I just like to highlight what I actually accomplished, but both right brain and left brain factors, not just crush quota, got 140%. I mean, that's one kind of hiring manager. Did I answer that question? I mean, you're talking about SEO keywords or how that's a really personal basis. A lot of people leave their last job on there and don't even say that they've switched roles, which is kind of a subtle prerogative. I wouldn't be needy on the profile with like how bad it is or this is what I do. This is what I'm passionate about. I know this tech deeply because I've worked with X, Y, and Z company. These are the things I've accomplished in my career as an individual contributor. This is the kind of performance I bring out of people and teams. These are my strong suits, and just play to your strengths. And then they'll read that and they'll be happy with it. If you reach out to me after, I've done a lot of profile optimizations, and I can help you like with your cover image, your photo, your SEO descriptions, all that good stuff. It will help you. I'm happy to help you with that.
I love it. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Hell yeah. Love it. So yeah, we'll continue the conversation on that. So just transitioning over to Brad for a sec. So Brad is a senior marketer, was a VP and is kind of his last role. I know that you mentioned you were doing some consulting on the side, so that's great. And that does kind of play in, right? So a lot of people are like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, so to speak, in terms of like the search. So we'd love to hear like how you're balancing that. And then also you mentioned being at home, having a family, and all those dynamics that I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with. Please bring us up to speed where you're at.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting times for everybody. At the end of March, I left my company, not COVID related. I came there through acquisition 2 years. I was planning to leave in the fall, and we kind of put a date on it. And March seemed like a good time before coronavirus happened. So, actually I had a lot of, irons in the fire, leading to coronavirus, and those kind of disappeared. And then, basically I took about 6 weeks. I was on an exit package to just kind of chill out and spend time with my family, be a dad to my 2 young daughters. And then I guess probably mid-April, I kind of, or maybe late April, started kind of picking up kind of a search. And I would say I got a combination of like a decent amount of inbound for people who are still hiring marketers. And with, being at home, co-parenting, co-working, the work being like looking for whatever's next. I had a limited kind of bandwidth, I think, and up until kind of recently. And basically I started with focusing on my network. Who are the people in my network that I can go to that kind of shake the tree, so to speak, and see what falls out. I think at that point I was kind of probably looking for jobs, but it ended up kind of coming, a few consulting opportunities came out of it. And, some of them I'm still working, but I have one main consulting opportunity that's taking up probably 50% of my time, but it covers most of my pay, from the last job, which is nice. And if I get another consulting gig, I'll be sitting pretty, but I do kind of want to get back in the game full time. I kind of like to be all in on something. So I'm still kind of looking, and I would say I'm kind of restarting my job search. So I don't want to say I got lazy, but kind of I had the consulting, income, and then I had a couple of opportunities which seemed hot and heavy. Two companies came at me pretty aggressively, and then I kind of stopped. As a marketer, I'm not accustomed to managing the pipeline, so to speak. I need to kind of work on that, but essentially I kind of focused on these two opportunities, putting them toward, working them through the funnel, and, sure enough, they both slowed down and kind of went south to close lost. And kind of, I'm at a point where I'm probably rebooting the process. And if I find another client, actually, I have one client opportunity that I'm still working, and then I just kind of get into a position where can really look for the perfect job. But I'd say the kids went back to daycare a couple of weeks ago. So like I'm basically spinning things back up. And I think if anything, the big mistake, of thinking about the job search, and being at my, ideal dream job, if you will, I think I put too many eggs in too few baskets. And I think and also I probably, was a little bit, I got a lot of recruiters coming to me, but I think I got a little bit played by a recruiter, kind of who was basically leading me to believe like something was a done deal. And sure enough, like, all of a sudden he's telling me about, I got some other opportunities for you, I think because basically things have cooled off. I'd say I'm kind of at a interesting situation where I have kind of the luxury of having kind of this consulting gig, but I do need to kind of like get things going again. And part of that game plan is kind of, I'm going to invest in LinkedIn. As a marketer, I've done a lot of tests over the years, kind of the like long form posting, if you will, to kind of get attention and engagement. And, it's kind of cliched. You see a lot of people doing it, but it works, right? All of a sudden, like if you do it with some frequency, you actually are appearing, people are just checking you out more often, and it leads to conversations. And I've done like a few strategic posts like during the pandemic, and all of a sudden I get a handful of people reaching out to me, and then but you got to keep on doing it. It's like kind of like a muscle. You got to keep on flexing it, working out every day. Otherwise it kind of dries up. So that's kind of where things are at.
So much to unpack there.
Yeah.
So, I would say that like, if you're reactive in your search, you're always going to get like 30% less of what you're capable of. Not 20, not 10, 30%, like a third less. If you wait for recruiters, there's always some version of this joke. Like after the nuclear apocalypse, there's like, cockroaches and attorneys and recruiters. You could say care or someone who like lives forever, immortal, with just, never seems to age a bit. So that's actually a compliment. But recruiters, in many ways, they are hammers and nails, and there's some very good ones too. And those are the ones like an Amy Volas. If you haven't reached out to Amy, she's awesome. She cares. She's mission driven.
She does marketing?
She might do marketing roles. I think she's more B2B sales. She'll know someone.
I know her. We've crossed paths, so
yeah.
I'll have to ask. Yeah.
She's definitely somebody that is like, when I say mission driven, it's not just about the money. It's about helping people, blossom and grow and find their dream job, which is, I still think totally possible in these times. So I just think it's about, from a marketing perspective, making a list of the companies where you would actually want to work, looking at their careers pages, contacting their hiring managers, putting your resume together, putting your LinkedIn together, doing LinkedIn posts for sure, and making sure that the right format. 5 years ago, 2,000 to 3,000 word posts were performing the best in LinkedIn Publisher. Now it's these little short form ones where it's like line, line, line. And the reason those perform is something called dwell time. So the algorithm sees how fast people hit it, but then how long the eye is holding on the content. So if you have long scrolls in the content, plus a link off in the first comment, plus people are hitting it, that's the gaming of the algorithm. Now it's really annoying because I keep having to read these posts that are like, once upon a time, ... And then I'm like having to read English in this bizarre way. I'm trying to be like, is there anything valuable in this clickbaity post at all? Or am I just rigging the algorithm, right? But, you know, if you can come up with an uncomfortable amount of companies to target all proactively, hit the careers page and submit. That's the way I would do it. You know, you can pay a professional resume writer. In my case, I didn't go to traditional school. It's more of a Goodwill Hunting story, right? I read a lot of books, had a lot of experience, and my resume was a yard sale. It just didn't look, you know, I didn't have the Harvard handshake on there at all, right? So I had that done by a professional, and they maybe the right fonts and the right things. It doesn't even, it reads in this weird way now, but it was helpful. Yeah, I helped with some SEO for a friend of mine, one of the GMs I mentioned, and it was awesome. After optimizing his profile, I started to get some really cool inbounds from internal recruiters, and it's just passive. It was kind of cool to see that. So in your situation, it's, I think, the willingness to do some outreach, to make some lists, to be targeted, because then you're way less prone to have them take advantage of you or lowball you. That's the most annoying thing when you're seasoned at something or you're pretty, you know, far along in your career and people come to you with like a marketing opportunity for like a starting out role. Hey, you want to do some SEO part-time work? Like, it's like, did you ever look at my profile or just spam, you know, all these lists? So those are the few. I would make sure your CV is bulletproof. Make a list of 50 to 100 companies that are like dream companies you'd love to work for. Definitely reach out with friends that you have who might be at those companies. So who do you really know? What's your first degree? What's your second degree? And who can make an introduction into a cool place to do marketing? What role are you looking for specifically if you were to go full time?
For VP marketing at like A and B round SaaS companies, you know, effectively kind of the first like marketing leader hire, or
Yeah.
Basically, a lot of companies get to A and B round and haven't really done anything in marketing. It's all outbound, right? And they're like, "Oh, we need to do content, or we need to scale. We need leads." You know?
So that's not really like a career page and apply type of sale, right?
That's a good point. So some of the higher titles. So also, Clinton, I'm not encouraging you to give up on EVP. This is like parallel strategy. Be willing to entertain it. So yes, VP of marketing a lot of times aren't listed. And sometimes you have to go through recruiters to get to them. And you have to go through word of mouth. Who's looking? So,
or VCs or something.
Yeah, through the VCs, the angel groups, look on Angel List, look at companies that are getting funding, where they're getting the A and B round on Crunchbase. So go to TechCrunch, look at companies. If you kind of like the business model and you believe in the tech, or you feel like you could get behind the marketing, reach out to their C-levels, reach out to the CEO, exact pitch. Hey, you know, usually in the B round state, you haven't really figured out your product marketing, your content marketing. You've got a lot of scrappy, like you yourself are selling. Like I can come in here and I've done this for other companies and I can codify your marketing engine and predictably drive inbound leads and give you the full funnel. So you know your story and the problem you solve and the pain you solve. So I would target that. So it's give me a little legwork, like maybe an hour a day, and use that trigger of the funding. Now the cloud index is on fire. There's verticals where there's still billions of dollars being poured in. What Satya Nadella said, it's been 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months.
Yeah, essentially. It's an acceleration like we've never seen.
But it's, you know, it's, you've got this consulting gig, which is great. And so I'm just asking you to get slightly out of your comfort zone. That's the biggest thing. If you're getting uncomfortable every day, you will see an outsized result that will impress yourself. Like for me, I'm always saying, like, am I comfortable? Is this Einstein's definition? Am I doing the same stuff I do? It's a lot like when I'm in the sales role itself. Like I don't have to cold call. That sounds painful. I'm going to cold call. Let me do a couple of things that scare me before lunch. Like, let me call some people that's high risk. If I mess up this call, I'll blow the account. Well, you know, I talked to Nike yesterday. Why? Because I saw someone at Nike that really, I thought we could help. So I called. That's the thing. I think if you're getting out of your comfort zone, if you're being proactive versus reactive, if you're going direct to the brands, if you're watching funding and you're telling the story and you're leading with the pain that you solve uniquely, just like Clinton, you know your strength. If we line up 100 other VPs of marketing, what's the area, your niche? The riches are in the niches. That's getting you this consulting work that you can parlay into that in-house VP of marketing. I've been in some companies. Swerve was one where we brought in a product marketing lead from Kenshu who crushed it. He really did amazing stuff for our website, and it was a really awesome transformation. The same thing at Tune. Brian Marcus came in from eBay and some other companies, just did a brilliant job on the marketing side. So I've seen as a seller, marketing make a huge dent in the quality of inbound leads and just the quality of like our collateral and our ability to position and market. That's the key, is just pitching, you know, your niche and knowing how you nail that niche. And then you really start to stand out. And then I'd build your LinkedIn profile and your resume, highlighting how you've done that over and over again. So there's like a lot of ways I could write my resume, but there's just a few specific things like cracking top funnel and doing it rapidly that are really appealing to SaaS companies. And so as I talk about the last roles I had, the last 4 or 5, I really just hone in on that one niche of that one thing that I'm doing over and over again, where I could list so many different things. And then it's the CV just has a slant, it has an angle, and it stands out. And it solves a problem. It's written for the problem that exists now.
I love that.
I hope that's helpful. It's
No,
probably Captain Obvious, I'll be honest.
No, you'd be surprised. Yeah, and you can kind of like going on AngelList, finding the founders of some of these companies, posting on LinkedIn, you know, once or twice a week, even tagging them in some of these posts. Like, you have a lot of knowledge to share.
There's
Love
something about every person that is so unique when they're their authentic work self and the problem they can uniquely solve well, a unconscious competence that they really excel at. If you can capture that on your social profile, your CV, and then go target that at the people who have the problem, that's just enterprise SaaS thinking.
Yeah.
And like, I'm trying to think more like a marketer when I'm branding myself in social media, and you're kind of thinking more like a seller with like a bench and an opportunity funnel and like daily prospecting, right? So it's like total fish out of water for me to get my branding right, but it could be fish out of water for you to be like working a funnel every day versus letting it come.
I think that's fair. And I think, you know, it's funny too, because I used to work at Pipedrive, and then we kind of promoted this sales pipeline management CRM for small business. And like, you know, I as a marketer, I know kind of what it is to sell in theory, you know, but I think that I'm more able to kind of create the narrative, and I need to, you're right, get out of my comfort zone and start, you know, hopping in there, so to speak.
I say it with the greatest level of tact. I used Pipedrive at Outbound Works and I loved it. It was a great system. So I hope it's helpful. I'm encouraging myself to apply the advice to myself, right? Like, I need to think more like a marketer. I'd love to hear from you. Like, how can we as candidates market ourselves better?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple of things when it comes to personal branding, right? Like, number one is kind of, you know, having that the story kind of buttoned up, right? And I think you kind of pointed to it, right? Like, what's the angle? And I think there's also like kind of like the foundational story, you know, like really, you know, every career is, you know, long and winding and different, but like every opportunity has different needs. So like, you have to have your kind of, I guess, like almost like a pick list of your full resume. But then when you go and kind of, you have all that stuff ready kind of to cut and paste, so to speak. But, you know, once you're kind of like in the thick of it with an opportunity, you really need to kind of like, you know, cherry pick kind of like the most interesting nuggets for that opportunity. And more often than not, you know, like you end up getting into everything, but up front, you want to highlight some of the good stuff. And so that's, I would say, you know, having that kind of pick list ready for chats, but like, you know, stringing together the best stuff for your LinkedIn and having that profile. So I did do some work to kind of spruce up my resume and my LinkedIn. I actually thought about having a resume writer kind of look at things, you know, because I think you get a little stale because you only update your resume probably once every like basically only when you're looking, right? You know, right. And basically, I think there's like a proactive kind of resume tactic to really kind of figure out what story you want to tell at the role and basically kind of like track it as you're at the company. So you can kind of, this time I was a little more proactive at the last company. So I had like the story I wanted to tell and bullets and you know, data stories to validate that about building pipeline and kind of, you know, building up kind of processes and building a team. But I would say like for LinkedIn, you have to, at least at the top of the profile, have all that stuff kind of right below the fold, you know, and then like, I think a little bit kind of like carefully choose your picture and background and like the stuff that people see when they get to your profile. So I think that there's that kind of core branding element because LinkedIn is your basically personal brand. All these other tools have kind of come and gone over the years, but LinkedIn's the one that like stays with you forever. And the one that's, you know, no one else really looks you up anywhere else, right? So having that profile and the narrative kind of, I guess, buttoned up for the being able to contextualize it for each opportunity. And I think, you know, I guess driving the awareness. So that's something that, as a marketer, it's easier for me to kind of do. And actually, I would say it was easier for me to do before I had kids. I used to do a ton of like content marketing, blogging. This is before people actually, did like what you see nowadays on LinkedIn. People who have gotten like branding right, they're doing, I would say, 2 or 3 things. Number one is this like frequency of posting, and it's not just like I'm posting a link and a title. It's like I got a story, I'm stirring the pot. There's some drama, there's a hook, something interesting to say, and to get people to kind of click and read, but to drive engagement, and that gets more people looking at your profile. People are also doing video. So I kind of, once I had kids, I kind of a little slow down on everything. I wasn't writing blog posts. I would say the minimum viable LinkedIn posting, which is kind of posting interesting articles with a few kind of comments. Yeah, I would say when you post like just a plain old link, you're not going to get a lot of views. You'll probably get like, I don't know, dozens of impressions and like a like or something. But the more substance you have that's like written, the more you'll get. And like the video and audio seems to be doing pretty well these days as well. So yeah, I would say from a marketing perspective, there's like having the story, contextualizing, but also being constantly promoting yourself as if you were promoting a SaaS product, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just added you all on LinkedIn, and Brad, you have more experience than me. So the other thing is like, I'm really humble about this stuff, and it's just one man's opinion. I could be wrong, and I can learn from all of you at every stage in the career. And you're always fresh eyes to look at my approach and my LinkedIn and to say, here's how you could make it better, because we get too close to ourselves. We get, married to our story and way too close to our song. And it's like a complete stranger can totally revolutionize the approach, because we've just like almost to burnout looked at this thing from one viewpoint. So I love crowdsourcing. I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn while I ask the question, an obvious question, because 30,000 people on LinkedIn, I will often learn things about myself or certain, approaches to everything business related. Because, these polls are actually awesome. I released a book and renamed it based on 1,000 sales leaders that I polled. I wanted to call it TQ, and now it's Tech Powered Sales. Macarena, I want to make sure we get to you. Thanks, Hytham, and thanks, Brad, for sharing.
Thank you.
So what I found interesting about Macarena, just really quickly, and I'll kind of let you introduce, obviously, but so you recently graduated and you're kind of going into like an entry level role, and you mentioned a couple things that you were curious about, like what's the difference between interviewing at an agency versus kind of in-house at a company, and a couple other things that you were tossing around. So same thing, would love to hear if that's still true and where you are.
Yes, of course. So, I recently graduated, yes, from Florida State. Before that, I interned last summer in a tech company in New York City. My plan was to go there. I got an offer, but of course, with everything that happened, they had to take it back. After that, I've worked in different industries. I worked in Ecuador when I was living there in the stock market. I studied abroad in the Republic of Panama, did an internship there too. And since that date, I've been applying most of the techniques that you've said. I've called all my family and friends that I think it will be helpful. I have my resume reviewed by recruiters, my coworkers, and people from my career center. Besides that, made a list of my dream companies that I know they're hiring, emailing and reaching out to recruiters, but I haven't had like response yet. I know there's a lot of competition, so I'm wondering like, how would you approach someone in a company that you don't have someone that could refer you? Because I've had a message through LinkedIn, but I think it's hard to actually build a relationship there so that I can consider you to the position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just felt like CNN right there with the delay. It was like, oh yeah, I'm here in the backyard.
I'm with you, Anderson.
In paradise. Thank you, Anderson Cooper, reporting in. Wow. Okay, so what I've realized is that this is a quantity and quality game, and you can go in right through the front door. I'm curious what position you're applying to so that I give the right advice. Is it sales or marketing, or what are you trying to do? Is it tech companies? Is it services?
Yeah, mostly marketing. Maybe it could be like marketing analysis or social media management kind of positions. Does that require, I'm just going to start making up free-form English over here. Does that require you to be there fully on site, or can you do this remotely? Are you finding people saying, oh, you have to be in Omaha or you have to be in Seattle? From what I've seen, most of it starts remotely.
Okay,
Like,
cool.
yeah, I mean, I'm aiming to go back to New York one time, so companies there are starting remotely right now. I just in general have trouble. I mean, I have open to other jobs. I
Yeah.
just feel like, how do you reach out from like being a recent grad? So I don't know how exactly like I had an experience that I could solve a problem from them for them or something
Yeah.
like that. But how do you reach out actually for you to get something back? Like I don't know. I think I've emailed a lot of people, but I feel like it's not working very well.
Well, I hate to recruit Brad, who's in New York, yes,
Yeah, I'm in.
and
Yeah.
pretty senior in marketing circles and successfully consulting. So maybe Brad could make an intro. I'm not trying to sign you up, but that's like maybe something
Yeah,
serendipitous.
I'm happy to help. I have like a couple of ideas that kind of maybe can kind of maybe unblock you. Um,
Yeah, of course.
and, so I think number one, I think doing the informational interview thing with like whoever you can.
Yeah.
So I think you know, and I would say like widen the net. You know, anyone from who's like entry level, maybe a few years ahead of you, at a company doing what you want to do. You know, talk to them and kind of get network with them. Because the more people you know, the more opportunities you'll be exposed to. And also hiring managers too, informational interviews. You never know, you meet somebody where the relationship could go. So I think that asking for like an informational interview is the distinction, because you're basically, there's no like, oh, I'm looking for yeah, you're looking for a job, but you're more so wanting to learn. And I think a lot of people, like, at least if they have the time, and a lot of people have more time, especially if they don't have kids now, they want to give back and they want to help. So I think the fact that you're a recent grad and you're wanting to learn more and asking for advice is probably flattering to a lot of people. So I think that's an angle, and then you can go cold, because like people aren't expecting you to not asking for a handout, you're just asking for information, right? And you meet new people, get exposed to kind of new things, people can refer things to you. The other thing I think that is like pretty hot right now is these like Slack communities. There's like so many Slack communities now for like different areas of marketing and sales, and I'm in kind of a few that probably are relatively easy to kind of break into. Let me see, there's one called Online Geniuses around marketing. There's one that's actually really kind of popular all of a sudden called Rev Genius, and I'm trying to think if there's some others that come to mind. But I would say you can probably find some specialty ones around social media and just make some friends in the industry. And I think, being that you're kind of remote, another thing you can do is kind of volunteer your time a little bit, being that you're kind of low on the totem pole, and kind of just experience is worth a lot when you're young. It's probably worth more than kind of a paid job. And so I think this is kind of an interesting story. I kind of went through a couple of career changes, and marketing was kind of my, I guess, second career reset. So third career arc. And I was like in my early 30s, and I decided I'm going to get into marketing. And like my first opportunity was actually an unpaid internship. It ended up kind of being a pretty fortuitous opportunity. I worked my butt off. I learned a lot, and like kind of became a contractor, and then became kind of a partner in the business, and got acquired. And so I think at your age, you can give time and worry a little bit. I mean, assuming you have kind of a place to stay and kind of don't have like expenses, if you're with your parents right now, I would look for an opportunity to do something unpaid just to kind of gain experience. Because once you have experience, if you do something 3, 6 months, 9 months, like right now, it's like these times are unprecedented. Who knows when we'll go back to normal? But if you spend like, a few months kind of learning the ropes, like you're a lot more attractive as a candidate, when things start picking up. That's what
Okay.
2
Sounds
cents.
good. Thank you.
I would double click on that. So first I wanted to, flip the mic to Brad, because he's driven up the ranks on the marketing side. I've really done that on the sales side in SaaS and somewhat ad tech, martech, and media in this one vertical, really hyper focused on native mobile. So mobile applications. It's an $80 billion industry. I started to notice I couldn't find a human that didn't have a smartphone. That's when I knew, okay, people say, what do you do? I say, I work in the vice industry. And they're like, oh, alcohol, firearms, tobacco, right? I'm like, no, I am part of what's having you pick up your phone 250 times a day, right? So in a way, advertising and mobile advertising is this huge sector. I got into it through a whole other direction. Actually, I was managing call centers, and a South African conglomerate had invested in a call center that I was helping to run offshore. And then I kind of helped build up that business to sell it. And that's how I got my first mobile marketing gig. So I can totally relate to like proving oneself. I'm curious how many jobs you're actually applying to, because if you go on LinkedIn and you search for even marketing analyst, or what's the name of the role that you would ideally want to have in New York?
Yeah, something like that. Market analyst will be.
Yeah. If you opened your territory to worldwide and you looked on LinkedIn and you suddenly had thousands and you applied to all the ones that were willing to be remote, you could land this role from where you are. You could do just New York, but you might not be going there until early next year, mid next year. So if you need to generate the role now, I think I've really broken the sound barrier and shattered the paradigm as far as the sheer levels. In the beginning, like every single company closed their door because I didn't have a college degree. So you already have something. Well, you just graduated school, yeah?
Yeah.
So you have something that I have never had. Like you're ahead of me when I started in the game. Because I immediately, they'd be like, I remember I had an interview at Oracle and they're like, why don't you have any interest in higher education? I was like, I just read 200 books, like, Goodwill Hunting. It's knowledge. I'm getting the knowledge. So the question, and they're not wrong. If I could do it all again, I would just go to college and not have a 1 in 100 shot. I would, to Brad's point, ongoing education. Like you can get a lot of marketing certifications like SEO Moz, and there's Salesforce training. There's all sorts of stuff that you can get certified on LinkedIn Learning to just put like certificates and badges of the stuff you know how to do in marketing. You can build websites, you can build blogs, you can do content marketing. Are you doing a lot of that stuff already?
Yeah, so I started a LinkedIn course, so kind of.
Cool.
It's
Yeah.
a leadership course, but anyways, like
Yeah.
I've tried to do like something productive at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not questioning that, and I'm also not saying you have to do like way more than everyone else. I've just been amazed at when I turned up the volume on the amount of things I was willing to do and the amount of companies and amount of regions. Right, I work out of Tel Aviv, which is awesome. I never knew I would work out of Israel, but that's really cool. We have offices in many different countries, and I'm a player and a coach, so I have my own number to drive revenue, and then I have a team that I'm kind of building. And so if you're willing to look at different titles and different states and different regions and apply to probably 10 times more than the applications you're doing now, you can get in through the front door. I would start submitting your resume at much higher scales than what you're at now. How many jobs do you apply to per week right now?
Per week, around 50 or 60, I think.
Yeah, I would take that up to like hundreds. And I remember posting about this, it's philosophic, but are you really opposed to doing something cool as a marketing analyst anywhere in the world right now when you can't go anywhere? So even if it's a contract role for 3 months or 6 months, or it's paid or not paid, or like if it fits what you like to do and it's anywhere, would you take it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I also looked anywhere, like I have a European passport, so I have also looked for opportunities there. But
that's awesome. You have two things I don't have. You have a college degree and a European passport. So I'm trying to play to your strengths too, because I had to think about when I started, it was like, well, what can I do that other people can't? Or what opportunities do I have? So I think a lot of people respect your acumen for getting that degree. And I think if you 10x'd your submissions right now because of the crisis, you might get some bites outside of New York or different places. You might try the Midwest, right? People are blitzing San Francisco and New York. Typically I don't know. I don't believe in caste systems and the stratification of markets, but everyone wants to work in marketing in New York City. Isn't it true? Or Chicago? That's the madman, the Madison Avenue, right? That's a good question. Brad, what are some of the less unsung or the more unsung markets where there's smart marketing going on that's outside of New York City that would be cool places to look? Like, I know there's huge agency business in Chicago, so definitely.
I do think as a young person, there's is an allure to moving to a place like San Francisco or New York. So, and especially for life, for finding kind of a partner and getting married and stuff like that. There's a lot of benefits to being in New York. But in terms of I guess hot secondary markets like Austin, Denver are probably cool places to be. Salt Lake City, actually. There's a lot of tech out there. Silicon Slopes.
Yeah.
The one thing actually, I'm probably just
Cool.
yeah,
Like snow. Like to ski.
I just work for a company called Degreed. The company I just left, they have a big base in Salt Lake City, really cool city. I hadn't been there in a very long time and really impressed with kind of,
It's a cool place to be.
how much.
My friend's at Degreed. I can introduce you, Macarena, to her. She just started there as an enterprise account executive. She might know someone in marketing.
Oh yeah, that will be
They
great.
just raised a ton of money. People like to learn online.
I would say one thing that I thought, maybe that just maybe double click on an idea. You have a European passport, which, I don't know if it's an assumption you probably speak another language or two. So I think if you look at companies that kind of need some bilingual help in social media specifically, can you imagine being like a global company with a big presence in, for instance, South America, where, Spanish is a mandatory kind of language for marketing, right? You're at an advantage to a lot of people, potentially speaking multiple languages. So you might want to look at specifically companies that are in a few different places.
Yeah, definitely. I've been trying to look at too. Well, Spanish is my first language, so yeah.
Spanish is my attempted language. I went to Spanish camp and took AP. I did 6 years of Spanish, and I can conjugate and understand. But when I speak the language, it is Spanglish for sure. But hey, LATAM is booming, and e-commerce in LATAM is booming. Companies like Rappi, RAPPI, and there's all sorts of marketing and e-commerce blowing up. Shopify, some of these platform plays in Latin America. I just hear amazing things.
Yeah, I interviewed with Rappi actually last week, so haven't heard anything yet.
Cool. I'll introduce you to my friend at Degreed. And then if you reach out to Brad, I don't want to give Brad extra work, but like this is the kind of networking where we can help each other here. I got some friends in Salt Lake City. I can help Clinton. I added all of you online, and I will follow up. I'm not just a talking head. I'll try to help you. That's why I'm on this call. It does build my brand to do altruistic things like this, but I get a lot out of hearing your story and your struggle or your opportunity. So thank you, Hytham, for generating this.
Thank
and I have a 1 p.m. Zoom. I get to have 15 more Zooms. Miles to go.
Thank you so much, Justin. Thank you guys for jumping in. We'll continue.
I hope it helped you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. A lot of fun.